Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, did Jalen Carter miss out on an opportunity yesterday?
And one player is leaving Flowery Branch while another is coming. Which one of those moves is going to impact the Falcons the most?
And last but not least, and for the culture, Brandon Miller, armed security? Ooh, we'll talk about all that right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. But yesterday, T, we talked about how Georgia was getting ready for the pro day, and we all know the names, right? Nolan Smith, obviously Jalen Carter, a guy who's projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft until they found out that he had something to do or he was involved in the accident, that tragic accident down in Athens on January the 15th. So he ended up getting 2 charges, had to leave the combine, they're going to turn himself in and all of that. But yesterday, T, I think everything kind of came to a head as far as what he's been dealing with, because when you think about a guy who just left the combine 2 weeks ago, dealing with what he dealt with, he was 9 pounds heavier than he was in that combine just 2 weeks ago. And when you think about that, T, I think those are some of the things that you just kind of understand right now, that this young man is dealing with a lot of stuff and he's just trying to figure it out at this moment.
I would agree. And a statement was just released by Jalen Carter's attorney, Kim T. Stevens, confirming that he entered no contest pleas to 2 misdemeanor charges today and saying his actions, quote, did not cause a tragic accident that took a teammate's life. The reason I mentioned that in this show, and of course, you guys know that we like to bring you some up-to-date information, is because you've got to think about what he's grappling with, right? So he's grappling with the legal aspect of what could or could not be in his life. He's trying to get himself together physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally for a pro day, and he is still in mourning. Let's not forget, he lost friends in this situation, okay? He lost a teammate in this situation. And this is something where you even look at it from the perspective of survivor's remorse, because he could have been in that car or he could have lost his life in his car. There's so many things that are going on. And I had an interesting conversation this morning, Jarvis, that ties into this. One of the questions was, should the Falcons touch him or should the Falcons just stay away? And I said, let me rephrase. It was the Falcons should stay away. And I was like, not so fast. Not so fast. I think you have to have professionals in the room who evaluate where he is psychologically, because some people can receive counseling, like we've seen with John Morant, take different situation. But the point being, take that structure, that feedback, that insight, and use it faster to heal. We don't know that until there's someone who's sitting in front of him who is a licensed professional to know exactly where this young man is and whether or not he's game ready, or whether or not there's some deeper things that need to be dug into that maybe the Falcons wouldn't want to dig into, right? So I think, like you said, this still continues to have layers to it.
Yes,
he's still a viable prospect. 10 pounds, as you know, as a man, you can drop that in a heartbeat. Sad that sad that it slowed him down from yesterday. But let's not take one mediocre pro day and use that to wipe out what he did at Athens as a two-time NCAA college football champion. And let's not forget to show some grace, because we're not the ones who are going to have to work with him each and every day. We're not licensed professional psychologists to say where his mindset is. Yeah. And once maybe he gets some of this behind him and he can start to return to the Jalen Carter he is known to be off the field, including Kirby Smart and others have said that, then you can determine maybe if he is worthy of taking a chance on the field.
Yeah, and I think that, you make an excellent point, because when you look at the situation, like, in the short term and like in the short term, yes, when you look at it, you're like, okay, man, this dude missed out on an opportunity. For right now, like, but we still got 5 weeks into the draft. We still have private workouts, and
Yes.
teams are going to still call and bring him in or come to wherever he is and work him out and have those conversations, take him out to
Yes.
dinner and sit down and speak with him, because those are, and give the man an opportunity to speak, because he hasn't spoken, since he got arrested. So when you have all of those things in place, and I think that Jalen is gonna get those things together, because he has plenty of time to do that. And when you talk about the whole Falcons piece, like this could potentially be a Warren Sapp type, Randy Moss type situation.
Yes,
because we know
I was
that.
thinking the same.
You know what I
thing,
mean?
Jarvis,
Like,
the
this
same.
is like, you don't want to be that team that missed out on an opportunity like this, because at the end of the day, it's what you talked about, right? Showing the man some grace, because at the end of the day, he's still, like you say, dealing with the loss of teammate. He's dealing with survivor's remorse, I'm sure. Because like, when you think about those things and being in those situations like that, and being in life or death situations, and I've been in them before as well. So
Yeah.
I kind of understand. I like, dude, I understand what you're going through, brother.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that people don't really care for that. But when you're talking about him as an individual,
Yes.
I think this is a moment where, okay, I just want to, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna do my best and try to get through it. Meanwhile, I'm gonna try to get some professional help and start talking to people to try to get
Yes.
some thoughts and comments out that I've been dealing with, so I can be able to establish myself and be able to perform at my highest ability, because he's not at his highest right now,
Right.
physically or mentally.
Exactly. And one more thing to add, Jarvis, before we move on, I thought about this. Now you're going to have some quality individuals who I want to call bookends of the interior.
Right.
You got Grady Jarrett already. Now you have David Onyemata. And everything about them speaks of high character. Terry Fontenot wouldn't have brought Onyemata here if
Amazing
the high
point,
character piece wasn't there. So can you imagine not just Jalen Carter contributing to the Falcons on the field, but being able to have those types of leaders and those types of high character individuals who can also help to get him back on path? I think that's another piece that people forget. Like, many of us have been going down the wrong path until some mentor took a moment to say, hey, wait a minute, you might want to reset yourself.
Yeah, I think the greatest point you made right there is Grady Jarrett, because who is Grady Jarrett? Dang near the face of this organization.
Indeed.
The guy that is exemplary in everything on and off the field.
Yes,
Like,
yes,
you don't
yes.
have to worry about him getting into any issues. And I think that him playing the same position that he plays, that will be an amazing opportunity for, him to be that in that mentorship space. Not saying Grady has to do that, but from what I know and what I gather and where he comes from,
Yeah.
I know that more than likely that young man will be more than willing to have some conversations with Jalen if he were to come into this organization. And I think that,
Indeed.
people need to slow down, calm down. Yeah. It didn't look good. The optics weren't great yesterday, but I think that there still is an opportunity for Jalen to kind of prove the people that, hey, he's ready to move on at some point with this situation. And then by the time they get ready to report for camp, everything be all good.
And one more to throw at you, Jarvis, before we wrap up. I know I said before, but I know you're going to love what
Yes.
what I'm about to say. If not the Falcons, a team where there's a dog that he respects. Because when Patrick Peterson took Tyrann Mathieu under his wing, he said, take a chance on him. And we know now Tyrann Mathieu was critical to the Chiefs Super Bowl run. And he is now a leader back in his hometown of New Orleans with his hometown team. So let's not forget that, if not with the Falcons, with a team where maybe a dog who's come before him can kind of help get him back on the right path.
Yeah, that's all you ask for, an opportunity. And I think that he may have missed one, but I think wholeheartedly he has more than enough to be able to get right in order for the right team. And hopefully it's a team, this team with that jersey, you see that jersey right here, then that black and red? Hopefully that's the case. Now we're talking about hoping there's a case you can win some money, because guess what? March Madness is here. It's getting ready to go down, and you want to mess with the #1 sports book in America. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's the website that you need to go to. And once you go there, if you're a new customer, guess what? They have the no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sports app right now. It's safe, secure. You ain't got to worry about no in this. People stealing your information, all that stuff. They got that locked in just for you. Heard what I said? Locked in. We got you locked in right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta right here. So, also, you can bet on the money lines, the point spreads, each and everything. And you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout at a same game parlay. So, don't miss your chance to get no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. LOCKEDON. And make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Now, Jarvis, we really liked a lot of the moves that the Falcons made heading up to free agency, right? Really, really think that they made some solid moves that is to me, and I think to you as well, moves that'll make the team exponentially better. However, there was one question going into free agency, and that was at the QB position. We figured they'd take a QB in free agency to get that veteran, but it was interesting that they would go with Taylor Heinicke, and even more interesting is the fact that you're talking about a 2-year, $14 million contract, $6.32 million guaranteed at signing, 1 year with $7 million potentially, and some interesting cap hits, 4.92, $9 million. The reason we say all that is because we thought they might get someone who was maybe not that pricey, but when you get that guy, you might be thinking that he could also be a little more than a backup. So that being said, does having a Taylor Heinicke, who is a little bit more than maybe a backup quarterback, we'll call him a high-end backup, any more pressure on Desmond Ridder?
Ooh, I don't think so, because my impressions from Desmond Ridder, like, we've talked to him, after practice and everything, like that. What I get from him is the fact that, like, nothing really, bothers this guy. Yeah. Like, he's the type of guy that I'm gonna do me, essentially, regardless of whatever the situation or any outside factors that, happen. You know what Indeed. I mean? And that's what you want, especially when you're talking about a quarterback, a guy that you're looking to lead your team, a guy that you're looking to, really establish himself as a leader and as a starter, for however long he's here. And I think one of the things that really kind of made me really start to warm up to him, because initially I wasn't too enamored when the Falcons took him in the 3rd round with the 7th overall pick. I wasn't all that high on him. But the thing that really kind of just made it for me was the fact that he established himself with Drake. And when you think about that scenario, right, that's some forward thinking too. So, like, I know at some point I'm going to be throwing the ball to this dude. I don't know if it's this year or next year. Yeah. But I need to be able to establish a relationship with this cat, because I know he's the #1 guy. Like, you draft him, you draft a wide receiver in the top 10, more than likely he's going to be the wide receiver 1. You know what I'm saying? That's how that works in the NFL. So for him to be able to establish some type of rapport with him, work out with him, establish a genuine relationship with him, those guys have something going as far as just – those guys are really friends. Those cats aren't just guys who work together. Right. And for him to kind of be able to establish himself with him, and then once they made a decision to bench Marcus Mariota, I already knew, I automatically knew in my mind, I was like, watch Drake London's numbers go up. Yeah. Watch them go up. And that's exactly what happened. And I think that when you have somebody who can come in immediately and pinpoint the person, hey, I need to be able to get with this guy. I need to be able to work with this guy. And then go out and then eventually see that relationship through within a year. Yeah. Like, that is some cool stuff. Like, that's some leadership type stuff. And I think that when you have those type of qualities and assets, you're not worried about Taylor Heinicke. I'm sorry.
No. You literally are saying to yourself, okay, bring it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, okay, bring it. Yeah. That's what I hear when I think about that. Now, For me, I'll be honest, I was kind of hoping for maybe someone the likes of maybe a Jacoby Brissett. I'll be
Somebody
honest.
who's been around the block. Yeah. A little
Yeah,
bit
and
more.
who I
Okay.
think would have been just a tad bit more okay with knowing that he was the backup, because he's been that for so long in the league at this point. Even a Teddy Bridgewater, I think at this point knows he's
Yes. Yeah, him
relegated to
too.
a backup. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of what I was looking for. But I don't dislike the Taylor Heineke pick, because one thing that it does do is I think Desmond Ridder is an interesting guy, and he'll use things as motivation, right? So I think he'll use it as like competition in his mind. Like, okay, you threw a deep ball, I'll throw a deep ball. Like, I don't think in his mind he's necessarily going to be intimidated, which I think is great. But I also agree with you that he competes with himself.
To your point, when he first came in, that's all he started talking about. Yeah, this is competition. I'm competing. I'm competing
He
for a
sure
starting
did.
spot. And then we saw crickets on that.
Yeah,
I guess
he pulled
somebody
back
put
a little bit,
put the kibosh on that, and he pulled
Yes.
back on it. So yeah, to your point, yes, this dude is an extreme competitor for sure.
He definitely is. And you love to see it, and you have to see it with the guy under center. And although he didn't really get to work with him because, of course, Kyle Pitts was done for the season, but there were some moments in training camp that we saw too that kind of hinted at, that could be a thing. That could be a thing.
Yes.
So imagine if the work that he did with Drake London and Kyle Pitts' desire to come back and be bigger, better, faster, stronger. Imagine the work that KP can put in, because he at least has some rhythm with Ridder as well. So I love to see it. This was an interesting one, because I think we all wondered kind of what was going to happen when the things started to shake out with who the Falcons were picking up in free agency. And one of those guys was Isaiah Oliver. Like, we weren't really sure where he was going to fit in. Well, we now know, according to multiple reports, that he's agreed to a 2-year deal with the 49ers. So is corner the next stop for the Falcons free agency train, or do you think maybe they'll go after an Oliver replacement in the draft?
Ooh, that's a very good question, because I got Aaron Freeman with Locked On Falcons. Got check him out. He be talking some good stuff as well.
Yes.
He tweeted out yesterday. He's like, I guess D. Alford is next up in line, and I think that when you look at how D. Alford came onto the scene last year, the dude made some plays. Now he had his moments now, but when you think about coming from a different league, coming from the CFL and everything like that, and stepping into the big boy leagues, I think he showed that he belonged, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why they allowed Isaiah Oliver to walk out the door, because at the end of the day, when you have a guy like Oliver in being a second-round pick, you're gonna figure out a way to use him, because there's some talent there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, we know he can't play outside corner. Like that did not work. So DNP's, hey, let me slide him in the nick. Let me see what he does.
Yeah.
He was solid.
He did.
So he did some solid work in that slot corner spot. So when you think about it, is those are some of the things that, having that forward thinking that Dean Pease, I always appreciate him for as a coach. He's like, hey, you might not be here, but hey, you're playing for your next contract. And guess what? Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, we'll take him.
Yeah, we'll take him.
We'll take him. And that's how it goes down in the NFL. So I think that, you got some guys like D. Alford. I think that's the guy, first name that comes to mind as far as stepping into that slot spot. But I do think they will draft a corner.
Yes.
I'm not sure if they go in that I don't think they're going to go in the first round, but I think that second or third, they might try to find someone that they feel like that would be a good fit for them to come in and play right away.
Indeed, because we still need to see what Casey Hayward can do. We still need to know where he is, but in our minds, he's still the starter. He's still your starter at right corner. So at the end of the day, you would, to me, be better off going for a corner in the draft, because I think you can probably get yourself one, even if you either take one at the top of the third round or you trade up to get maybe late into the second round and get yourself a corner. I think you'll be just fine, because we don't talk a lot about that position, because this is a really nice edge rush class.
Indeed.
So we really talk about the pass rushers most often, but I think low key, this is a pretty solid DB class as well. So yeah, I do think that they can go and find themselves a jewel, and they don't have to use that 8th pick to do it because, as you all know, defense matters. And we all know that with the moves that were made last week, exactly, that 8th spot, whether you stay 8 or you go up to 7 or 6, you are going to get prime real estate on the edge to the point where you can now, in those other rounds, I believe they're going to be in good position. Also, we know that Terry Fontenot has done a nice job of getting a few assets. So if they need to package anything in the draft, I believe that they have what they need in order to do some packaging.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, it's all about team building. And I think a lot of people are talking about the flashy moves and not really doing it now. I classify Jesse Bates as a flashy move.
Yes.
To me, that's
on
a
your mind
flashy
as
move.
well.
Yeah, because he's the coveted guy. A lot of people were talking about how much money he was going to make before he even signed with the Falcons. So, but I think outside of that, you just been very strategic.
Yes.
Very moves that are going to make them better as a team, and not necessarily guys who can carry a team on their back by getting the amazing numbers. Right. And I like what Terry Fontenot is doing. And I think, like I said, we've talked about his vision for this team, and it's crystal clear right now. I think that we are heading towards a board where they'll draft the edge rusher with the 8th overall pick. It just makes too much sense, right? Unless they come out here and get a Yannick Ngakoue, and even then they still have to get somebody that can come in and get after the quarterback because, hey, we're going with the hashtag Tenitra Mantra all day on this show.
Indeed. And listen, like you said, to me, there were some sneaky good picks that may not be flashy, but I think down the road, they'll deliver splash and flash and dash. And one of those is Jonnu Smith. So Jonnu Smith talked about the fact that he absolutely loved being here. This is where he wanted to be. And you know who else is talking about where he wants to be? Aaron Rodgers. And if you want to hear reaction on it, go to Locked On Sports Today. They're going to give you all the reaction about his wish list of going to the Jets. And he says allegedly he doesn't have one, but we know he does. And so you want to hear about it, Locked On Sports Today is where you should check it out because they give you all sorts of news. Also, some reaction to Ja Morant and what's going on with him. I am sure that they're going to talk about that as well as he seeks to get back on track. We now know he's suspended for 8 games. They'll give you reaction to that as well. So don't forget, after you listen to ATL Day Ones, that's a great second stop for you, whether you check them out on YouTube or whether you download them wherever you download the rest of your podcasts. And you know where we're about to go, right? For the culture. But when you go to them, they'll give that to you sort of kind of with their take of the day. So don't forget, Locked On Sports Today is your next stop.
And your next stop, if you haven't subscribed or downloaded our podcast on the audio side, make sure you do that. Do it. We're on our way to 6,000 subscribers. You guys have been rocking with us. I love it. I really appreciate you guys so much. And if you haven't done so, make sure you do. And if you want to get in contact with the program, atldayones@gmail.com is the email. But this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about. Because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. How about this? Like, now we've talked about this story as far as, with Brandon Miller and the situation that happened down with the young lady unfortunately losing her life. Yeah. And Brandon Miller allegedly brought the gun that was used to murder her at the scene. He brought it to that person because that person had texted him, to bring it down there. And as of right now, there have been no charges. But the crazy thing, though, T, is the fact that he has armed security as they're going through the tournament. And to be honest with you, I don't necessarily have an issue with that.
Right.
But what I have an issue with is how Alabama has handled this situation, right? Because from the beginning, nothing to see here, essentially. No charges were being brought against him, and we're going to play him and being defiant almost about it. And then wondering why he's in a situation now that he's receiving threats and all that stuff because you guys protected him and didn't do anything to him. Like, you didn't even say, hey, this is all about the family.
Yeah.
Condolence goes out to the young lady who lost her
Right.
life. It's truly unfortunate. This is a pending case. There are certain ways how you handle it, and I think ultimately the reason why Brandon Miller needs armed security right now is the fact that Alabama, they dropped the ball from the beginning.
Yeah, because guess what? The code of the streets is eye for an eye. And literally, I'm sure some of those threats are in that vein. But you're now put in this position where, honestly, Jarvis, Brandon Miller's life is not the only one that's in jeopardy. Because whoever is coming for you, if they start shooting, bullets don't have names on them. So really, that entire team, that coaching staff, and anyone who travels with them, when they're in the company of Brandon Miller, or when the assailants think that they're in the company of Brandon Miller, those individuals are in trouble. And you are right, Jarvis, you're dead on. No offense utilizing that word, but you are spot on, rather. And Alabama, I don't think that they understand the gravity of how poorly they handled this. And the sad part is, exactly, the sad part is they're so deeply entrenched in the bad move that they made, the poor decision making, that it's almost like they can't turn back. Like, what do you do at this point? You just kind of ride it out. And I guess once you get past the tournament, then of course, you part ways, and it's like, hey, good luck getting in the NBA, that type of thing. But the damage is already done, because now, can you really enjoy this tournament run with a cloud like that lingering over your head, knowing that this guy has people who are out to take his life, and therefore the lives of everyone else is in jeopardy? That's what you should have been thinking about from the get-go.
Yeah.
Because trust and believe, the code of the streets does not care that he has Alabama on his chest. They don't care, and they don't care about those other individuals who are playing with them. Those guys could essentially be casualties of war, and that is what that Alabama program has put those individuals in jeopardy of. Yes, Brandon Miller was a part of committing the crime, obviously supplying the weapon. But you're like an accessory.
Yeah.
Because you're allowing this thing to just linger on. And if somebody else gets in the way of a bullet, it's going to be on your head. It's going to be on your head. And
that's what, with all these issues, all these scenarios, right, with John Moran, like you mentioned earlier, they are in a situation where John Moran is a little different, obviously, because he's in the NBA, a grown man. Like, you make your decisions, you lie in it. But when you're talking about a scholarship athlete, like, you are going to that school to be protected, right? Mm-hmm. And if the way they handled it, they didn't protect him. They made it worse. They made it worse. Yes. They could have easily said, hey, he's going to step away from the team for a certain amount of time. And, hey, at some point he's going to rejoin. But right now, given the gravity of the situation, of someone losing their life and him being involved in some capacity, we're going to ask that he step away, and then he will join the team in the near future. That's easy. That's simple, T. Yeah. That's simple, T. That's respect for the family, because respect towards the family, excuse me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's also respect for the young man as well, because at the end of the day, I promise you, they would have handled it like that. We wouldn't even be worried about threats and all this stuff, because
indeed,
you know how many people hate college athletes because they have the privilege of going to school for quote unquote free, and then and getting NIL money, and he's going to be an NBA prospect. It's the only reason you protect him. It's just people have a lot of disdain towards scholarship athletes, and I think that when you are acting as if you are trying to protect him, you're doing nothing. You're doing them a disservice by handling the way you did, and that's truly unfortunate in Alabama's case.
Yeah, and juxtapose Brandon Miller and Alabama's basketball program and the handling of that, Jalen Carter and Georgia's football team and Kirby Smart's handling of that. You may not like all of the pieces of how Georgia handled it, but I guarantee they have been churning their minds on this from the day it happened to figure out like how to get ahead of it, because they knew at some point it was coming to pass. Mm-hmm. And we could take a lesson still from how they're handling it even today. Like Kirby Smart said, not resting on their laurels and looking at their program and always trying to do what's in the best interest of the student athletes and the players. Alabama could take a lesson from them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they've been taking a lesson these past 2 years by these back-to-back national championships. So,
take another lesson from them.
Yeah, take another lesson from it, Alabama. How about that, Tuscaloosa? But anyway, T, I think we are in a space now where I feel like it's going to be some interesting things coming down the road, and I really we definitely gonna have to keep an eye on this whole Brandon Miller situation and the Jalen Carter situation as well, because you know me, T, I would love to see that young man in a black and red uniform for sure. And we also would love for you to come back, and thank you also for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And how about this? How about you make Locked On Sports Today your second listen of the day? You find it wherever you find this podcast. And they have the take of the day. What's take of the day? Go ahead and find out. Locked On Sports Today, wherever you download your podcast. And last but not least, before we get out of here, I do this every day. And, you know, I don't think it's much, but I want you guys to make sure that you share love, show love, and most importantly, spread love.